hello, squirrels. Here I am, late night, or early in the morning. I'm so crazy. I forgot what chapter this is. 15, maybe? You'll see it. Part 2. You look remarkably well, if I may say so, Mrs. Tommy, said Mr. Ivor Smith. I'm feeling perfectly well again, said Tuppence. Silly of me to let myself get knocked out, I suppose. You deserve a medal, especially for this doll business. How you got on to these things, I don't know. She's the perfect terrier, said Tommy. Puts her nose down on the trail and off she goes. You're not keeping me out of this party tonight, said Tuppence suspiciously. Certainly not. A certain amount of things, you know, have been cleared up. I can't tell you how grateful I am to you two. We were getting somewhere, mind you, with this remarkably clever association of criminals who've been responsible for a stupendous amount of robberies over the last 5 or 6 years. As I told Tommy when he came to ask me if I knew anything about our clever legal gentleman, Mr. Eccles, we've had our suspicions of him for a long time, but he's not the man you'll easily get evidence against. Too careful by far. He practices as a solicitor in ordinary, genuine business with perfectly genuine clients. As I told Tommy, one of the important points has been this chain of houses. Genuine, respectable houses with quite genuine, respectable people living in them, living there for a short time, then leaving. Now, thanks to you, Mrs. Tommy, and your investigation of chimneys and dead birds, we found quite certainly one of those houses, the house where a particular amount of the spoil was concealed. It's been quite a clever system, you know, getting jewels or various things of that kind changed into packets of rough diamonds. Hiding them, and then when the time comes, they are flown abroad or taken abroad and in fishing boats. When all the hue and cry about one particular robbery has died down. What about the Perrys? Are they... I hope they're not mixed up in this? One can't be sure, said Mr. Smith. No, one can't be sure. It seems likely to me that Mrs. Perry at least knows something, or certainly knew something once. Do you mean she really is one of the criminals? It mightn't be that. It might be, you know, that they had a hold on her. What sort of hold? Well, you'll keep this confidential. I know you can hold your tongue in these things. But the local police have always had the idea that the husband, Amos Perry, might just possibly have been the man who was responsible for a wave of child murders a good many years ago. Amos! It's terrible. Ooh. Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. You can hold your tongue, might just possibly a good many years ago. He is not fully competent mentally. The medical opinion was that he might quite easily have had a compulsion to do away with children. There was never any direct evidence, but his wife was perhaps over anxious to provide him always with adequate alibis. If so, you see, that might give a gang of unscrupulous people a hold on her, and they may have put her in as tenant of part of a house where they knew she'd keep her mouth shut. They may really have had some form of damaging evidence against her husband. You met them? No, you met them. What do you feel about them both, Mrs. Tommy? I liked her, said Tuppence. I think she was, well, as I say, I summed her up as a friendly witch, given to white magic, but not black. What about him? I was frightened of him, said Tuppence. Not all the time, just once or twice. He seemed suddenly to go big and terrifying just for a minute or two. I couldn't think what I was frightened of, but I was frightened, I suppose, as you say. I felt that he wasn't quite right in the head. A lot of people are like that, said Mr. Smith, and very often they're not dangerous at all, but you can't tell and you can't be sure. What are we going to do at the vicarage tonight? Ask some questions, see a few people, find out things that may give us a little more of the information we need. Will Major Waters be there, the man who wrote to the vicar about his child? There doesn't seem to be any such person. There was a coffin buried where the old gravestone had been removed, a child's coffin, lead-lined, and it was full of loot, jewels and gold, objects from a burglary near St. Albans. The letter to the vicar was with the object of finding out what had happened to the grave. The local lads' sabotage had messed things up. And then we get to part 3. I'm so deeply sorry, my dear, said the vicar, coming to meet Tuppence with both hands outstretched. Yes, indeed, my dear, I have been so terribly upset that this should happen to you, and when you had been so kind, when you were doing this to help me, I really felt, yes, indeed I have, that it was all my fault. Wait a minute. Did I read all that? Yeah. I shouldn't have let you go poking among gravestones, though really we had no reason to believe. No reason at all. That some band of young hooligans. Now, don't disturb yourself, Vicar, said Miss Bly, suddenly appearing at his elbow. Mrs. Beresford knows, I'm sure that it was nothing to do with you. It was indeed extremely kind of her to offer to help, but it's all over now, and she's quite well again, aren't you, Mrs. Beresford? Certainly, said Tuppence, faintly annoyed, however, that Miss Bly should answer for her health so confidently. Come and sit down here and have a cushion behind your back, said Miss Bly. Miss Bly. Sorry about my voice, y'all. I'm so glad when the pollen and stuff is not stirred up. Okay, come and sit down, have a cushion behind your back, said Miss Bly. I don't need a cushion. Just make it German drop. I don't need a cushion, said Tuppence, refusing to accept the chair that Miss Bly was officially pulling forward. Instead, she sat down in an upright and exceedingly uncomfortable chair on the other side of the fireplace. There was a sharp rap on the front door, and everyone in the room jumped. Miss Bly hurried out. Don't worry, Vicar, she said. I'll go. Please, if you will be so kind. There were low voices outside in the hall. Then Miss Bly came back, shepherding a big woman in a brocade shift, and behind her a very tall, thin man. A man of cadaverous appearance. Tuppence stared at him. A black cloak was round his shoulders, and his thin, gaunt face was like the face from another century he might have come. Tuppence thought straight out of El Greco canvas. "I'm very pleased to see you," said the vicar, and turned. "May I introduce Sir Philip Stark, Mr. and Mrs. Beresford, Mr. Ivor Smith. Ah, Mrs. Boscawen, I've not seen you for many, many years." Mr. and Mrs. Beresford. "I've met Mr. Beresford," said Mrs. Boscawen. She looked at Tuppence. "How do you do?" she said. "I'm glad to meet you. I heard you'd had an accident." "Yes, I'm all right now again." Now. The introductions completed, Tuppence sat back in her chair. Tiredness swept over her, as it seemed to do rather more frequently than formerly, which she said to herself was possibly a result of concussion. Sitting quietly, her eyes half closed, she was nevertheless scrutinizing everyone in the room with close attention. She was not listening to the conversation, she was only looking. She had a feeling that a few of the characters in the drama in which she had unwittingly involved herself, were assembled here as they might be at a dramatic scene. Here's one. Dang it. My eyes are getting crazy, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to stop. I prayed I'd at least get 30 minutes in. Law, I ain't even got at 12. Sorry. Dribs and drabs. Little bits here and there. I would get to it earlier in the day. Oh, keep praying. Keep praying, I'll do that. Have a pleasant morning, day, whatever time this is when you watch it or listen. Love you bunches. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. And hope to see you. See, tomorrow's Thursday, so YT Streets, Dana Triple C may have making meat tomorrow at 6:62. No. Lord, what was I telling you about? Oh, crap, I forgot. I'm crazy. Oh, yeah. Making meat is 6 o'clock now. 6 to 8. And then Melanie, oh, Lord, I forget Melanie's channel. Melanie's Creative Corner. She's going to have her first live, and that's going to be at 8 o'clock. Of course, I don't know. Sadie's probably not coming on because her hubby's still in the hospital. I don't know if anybody else is. Anyway, I'm going to go to Melanie. She has sweetly asked if I would be there if I could, so I'm going to try to do that. Have my alarm set. Bye, y'all.